Hey, and greetings to you, my Facebook friends and online digital community. This is Love Coach Scott Thomas, and it's Sunday, November 29th, 2020. This incredible year, unlike any other year we've had. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about this morning. I thought maybe I'd do a replay of another previous show or a short meditation. And frankly, while I was lying in bed, I realized I hadn't even really taken time to really drop in to what this weekend traditionally means to me, because November 28th was the day that my wife died. Now, of course, the moment I see that date and think about that date, that's always what I think about. And I was in the awareness of it all week long. I always I'm very sentimental, so I look at the Facebook memories a lot. So, of course, the last few days, all the Facebook memories have included either anniversaries of her death or going back to when it happened 9 years ago. There's a lot. It kind of became a viral thing because it happened so fast. So it's been in my awareness, but I've been so busy, I hadn't mourned. And so this morning, I did some mourning. Henceforth, my eyes look a little teary still. But I realized, well, let's talk about that, about mourning, how important it is to grieve. And some of the things I've learned about grieving from my own life, and certainly in supporting other people. So just briefly, a little history about my relationship to people dying. I've got quite a history with that. My father died when I was 23, and he was my best friend. And I literally walked him through his death. I was the only one there. But there was like some part of me that knew what to do. And he had a tracheometry, so he couldn't speak, but we were communicating through him squeezing my hand and blinking and just looking into each other's eyes. We were in deep communication. And literally, I could tell that he loved his mother very much, and his mother had died a few years earlier, many years earlier, actually. And I knew that his mother was waiting for him on the other side. And I literally got it. I said, "Do you see your mother?" And he nodded his head up and down. It was really, really beautiful. So I said, "Go to your mom, go to your mom." And he did. And he closed his eyes and he died. And so that began my experiences of working with death and dying. Now, what was interesting, and this is a big part of the mourning process. So my dad's my best friend. He dies practically not in my arms, but with me right there. But I didn't cry. And I missed him terribly, but I didn't cry. 3 years went by. 3 years. And I never cried about my dad's death. One of the things that Dad and I shared when he was alive was we went to baseball games a lot. We went to Dodger games, usually 5, 7, maybe 10 games a year. It was like a thing we shared. We listened to games on the radio and on TV. But when he died, I just stopped going to Dodger games. I just, it was like what I do with my dad, right? But, it looks like, okay, yeah, hopefully we're still live. My best friend, Richard, said, "Come on, man, let's go to the game. I got tickets." So I said, okay. So for the first time since my dad died, I get in the car with my buddy Richard. He was driving. And we go to the ball game. And the moment the car came up over the hill and I saw Dodger Stadium for the first time in 3 years since Dad died, I lost it. I was crying so hard that my buddy had to pull over, and I climbed into the back seat, and I can remember like practically being in convulsions, just weeping. 3 years later. So this was a lesson for me that sometimes it's like the grief will come in a time that we don't expect it, but something will trigger it. After my wife died, I cried a lot when she died. So there's no lack of tears there. But about a year later, I was putting something up in the laundry, and she always had like little post-it notes, and she's German and very organized, little post-it notes. And I just, one of her little post-it notes about which shelf we're supposed to put the pillows here and the linens here and the towels here. I saw that posted, and I've probably seen it unconsciously 1,000 times, or 100 times, but I really saw it. Tears came. So that's one part of mourning, is that it's not necessarily ever over. And it is healthy to make time to grieve, to make time to mourn. No matter how many times you've mourned before, it's not like we just finish it, especially when it's something as significant as a wife or a mother or father or brother or sister or best friend. Yeah. I know that some of us have blocks to crying, especially men, and I recognize that. I had a long block to crying for a long time in my life also. And then finally I had a girlfriend who helped me learn how to cry. She was somebody who cried every day, and she helped me learn how to cry. And so for any of you that have a block to crying, literally create time, whatever it is, whether it's watching. It was interesting. I had a block to crying for my own emotions, but Disney movies, that's where I'd choke up. Right? Create time to allow those emotions to come forward. And remember, there's no such thing as a bad feeling or a negative emotion. All emotions are part of the human experience. No bad feelings, no negative emotions. There's uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable emotions, but they're necessary. They're part of the fabric of our human experience. I want to talk about the word bittersweet. I've noticed in my, when I kind of posted that I was going to do this, and I did post yesterday that it was the anniversary of my wife's death. And I so appreciate everybody who reached out, and quite a few people reached out, and sorry, Scott, feeling bad for you, sorry, sad. Those were the kind of primary words. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody who reached out, thank you. I do want to acknowledge that part of the mourning process for me is that it's not about being sorry. It is sad that she's gone. But I'm grateful that 9 years later, I still miss her so fucking much. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that it's not like I just moved on. I moved on in terms of I've had other relationships. I've enjoyed life. But I still miss her terribly. And I'm grateful for that, because the missing is bittersweet. It's like the word for the day, if you wish. Bittersweet. It's bitter that she's gone. It's bitter that we can't talk, cuddle, make love, share life. It's bitter. But it's sweet that I miss her that much, because the sweetness is the love that I'm missing. The sweetness is that love that endures. And we don't want to ever lose that love. Moving on doesn't mean I no longer love her or miss her, even if I'm in relationship, even if I someday marry another person. That person would need to understand that Shuchi will always be a big part of my life and in my heart. there's enough space in these big hearts of ours to love multiple people. And I'm not necessarily talking about polyamory, but I love many of my friends. I love many of my clients, not sexually or romantically, but I love them. So there's a lot of love that we can have, and there's not a fraction of love. Polyamory is a whole other thing, because when we engage sexually with people, that brings up a lot of stuff, and that's not what today's talk is about. But I do want to say that we all are capable of so much love. Let's not ever cut it back. Let's just stay in it. And even if that love is connected to someone who's gone, whether they died or the relationship ended, just drop into the bittersweetness of it. Bitter that it's gone, that they're gone. Sweet that you still love them, you still miss them, you still crave that connection. And that leads to a wonderful teaching. I want to acknowledge Robert Gonzalez, who taught the beauty of the unmet need. That sounds kind of paradoxical, doesn't it? How could an unmet need be beautiful? Well, this is really an important piece to understand. When we're focusing on deficiency and we go into kind of a victim way of thinking, it feels pretty funky, right? Like, I'm not, oh, poor me, my wife died, I'll never find love like that again. That it doesn't feel so good, to be honest. But when I drop into what am I missing about her? What are the experiences I'm missing? I'm missing checking in with each other throughout the day. I'm missing the quality of our lovemaking. I'm missing the quality of our connection, right? There's things that I'm missing. I'm going to call them, we could call them needs or values. They're beautiful. The experience, the value of that level of intimate connection, both emotionally and physically. The value of that incredible quality of connection that takes place in a marriage, where we're sharing life together, building this home that I'm in together. So what I'm missing are experiences, qualities of the relationship. And those qualities will always be beautiful. If I just focus on the deficiency, that they're gone, that's important. And that's part of the mourning, which I just said we need to do. We need to grieve. We need to mourn. But then pivoting into the beauty that I had those experiences. I'm so grateful I had those experiences with her. So many. And I may have similar experiences in the future with someone else, if I'm fortunate. But whether or not I do with someone else, I will always have those precious memories of what I had with her. And of course, every experience has its own unique flavor, its own quality, its own difference, right? So when we're mourning, let's also drop into the remembrance, the divine remembrance of what it was that we loved about that person. Maybe it was their character strengths or their virtues or things that we shared with them, right? Mourning is powerful. I think I'm going to close this out by sharing a story. Everything I've talked about has been pretty much based on my own personal experience. But I'm going to share an experience I had as a coach that has to do with the power of grieving and mourning. This happened actually many years ago. It's interesting because when Shuchi died, it happened really fast. I took her to the hospital on a Friday. She had a very bad headache that got worse and worse because it was Thanksgiving week. She didn't want to go to the hospital until after Thanksgiving. So on the Friday after Thanksgiving, we finally went to the hospital, got there. She literally lost consciousness on the drive down and never fully woke up. At the hospital, they did the brain scan, discovered that it was an inoperable tumor, and she literally had just a few days left. And she stayed one night, and then they let me bring her home, and she was here for 2 more nights. and then passed away on Monday morning, early Monday morning, November 28th. Okay. So because it happened so fast, it went viral. We had to put out over the internet, Shuchi's dying. If you want to come see her, for people who are local, come to Scott's house on Saturday or Sunday. And we had over 100 people who came during those 2 days. And it just went viral. Because it went viral, a lot of people who already knew that I was a coach associated me as somebody who knows how to handle death and dying in difficult situations. And so as a result, I've had a lot of people that have come to me when they get that news of a terminal disease or a very severe disease. They come to me for counseling and coaching. So I've had a lot of experiences since then working with people with death and dying. And there's 2 things I want to share. First off, this is a bit of an aside, but always give a lot of support to the caregivers. The people who are caregiving to the one who is dying, they need a lot of support because they're carrying a huge load. So that's just an aside to remember. But back to the story that I wanted to share. So I had somebody who hired me to help create healing in her family. And she just said, Scott, I'd really like to, I'm bringing my family together and I'd like for you to do some coaching to do healing of the family. Would you do that? I said, sure. We scheduled an afternoon for it. And I didn't know anything beyond that, right? So I was traveling. This was when I used to travel and tour a lot. I was teaching in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's where I knew her from. She had come to some of my classes there. So she picks me up in Louisville to drive across the river into Indiana to where her family is going to gather. And as we're driving, she's telling me the backstory. Oh my gosh. Well, the backstory is that 10 years earlier, her family was all in the car driving, mom and dad in the front seat, my client, I'll call her Laura, and her 2 twin brothers, Laura and her 2 twin brothers, who were both older than her, were in the back seat. They were in a terrible, terrible accident. One of the brothers was killed instantly. The other 4 family members had various physical wounds, but they all healed from the physical wounds. But they didn't heal from the emotional wounds of losing the brother. And I remember the brother's name was Travis. And the surviving brother and the father bonded, and alcohol and drugs became their bond, which led to the father and the mother divorcing. The mother became a born-again Christian. That's how she coped. She married another born-again Christian. And so there's this incredible split. And my client, Laura, was the only one still in connection to the father. And then the father and brother had a split. She was the only one in connection to everybody. And she had arranged for them all to come together in the same room for the first time in years. And she's bringing me with her to somehow create healing. And honestly, she's telling me the story. I'm thinking this is way beyond my capacity. This is like, this is back when I used to use puppets, the little jackal and giraffe puppets. It was like the puppets weren't going to cut it, right, for the level of pain. I didn't know what to do. So we get there and everybody kind of arrives, and, the mother's with her new husband in one corner of the room and the father's in another corner and the brothers in everybody's like separated. They're not really looking at each other. They're kind of waiting for me to start things. And I did what I do when I don't know what to do. I like that. I did what I do when I don't know what to do. And that is, I just tuned in. It's like, I'm a clear channel for spirit to flow through. God, what do I do? Life, what do I do? What do I do? And the guidance that I got, perhaps from Shuchi on the other side, I like to believe she gives me guidance in these moments, or something does. Pray and mourn the loss of Travis. And so as I did that, as I dropped into prayer and I grieved, Fantuzzi has joined us. And Fantuzzi, I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of an incredible story here. I'm going to put you back in the other room for a minute. Here you go. We had a Fantuzzi sighting. Isn't that amazing? Oh, maybe he'll be back. So the guidance that I get is pray and mourn Travis. And I said something along the lines of, asking us to close our eyes, started a prayer. And I said, something that you all have in common is you miss Travis. You all miss Travis. Let us grieve how much we miss him. And I kind of just stayed on the grieving part of it. And Laura started to cry, and then I noticed the mother started to cry, and the husband of the mother, But what magically happened, and it was like magic, everyone came together in a circle, and soon everybody was holding each other, weeping, crying together. I later learned that most of them had never grieved. They drank instead, or they chose religion instead. They did various forms, but they hadn't really grieved. 10 years. And the grieving is what brought them together. So, in kind of concluding this, remember to grieve, mourn, and grieve and mourn together with your friends, your family, those who also, maybe they knew the person that you're missing or not, but they can still grieve with you. I grieve all the time with clients and friends, because my friends become my clients and my clients become my friends often. I grieve with them, even though I never knew who that person might have been. So grieving together, mourning together, this is really, really important. I want to thank you for watching. Because I'm doing this solo, I haven't had a chance to see if there's any comments. But whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, and the majority of people tend to watch the replay of my Sunday show, I'll go back and I'll take a look at any comments that come in and do my best to respond. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being part of this great, big, beautiful global peace tribe as we all come together. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. As I'm thinking about the global peace tribe and grieving and mourning, I read an amazing story. It's on CNN right now today. Check this out. This is about something happening in Japan. In Japan, more people committed suicide last month. 2,300 people committed suicide in Japan last month. That's more than all the people who've died of COVID in Japan all year. Something like 2,100 people have died of COVID, 2,300, and that's the entire year since the pandemic started last March or February. And in 1 month, more people died from suicide. The point of the article being that there's a tremendous mental health thing that's occurring that shows up in Japan, where suicide is much more commonly accepted. But it points to the mental health challenges. And so, again, what does that have to do with Scott talking about mourning and grieving? If we don't mourn, if we don't grieve, then we turn more to drugs, to alcohol, to other ways to escape and avoid our own discomfort. Crying, grieving, mourning, pounding pillows, we have to move that energy, because there's a lot of grief. There's the pain of the pandemic, economic uncertainty, all the political stuff, the racial stuff. There's so much going on right now. And we all are feeling it, and we're all taking it in, and we all have to cope in our own way. And so taking time to feel our uncomfortable emotions is a powerful way of coping. So it's important. So take the time to do that, all right? Okay. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.